Dr. Everett White, retired obstetrician and gynecologist, and also I was acted as a medical director for a health maintenance organization in the past. COAL was established, and the ideal was from Senator Roland Burris in 2005. He called me, he said, my nickname is Scrappy, so he called me and said, Scrap, our black men are not doing anything. The women are taking care of business, but the men are not doing the social action that should be done. Our organizations, great organizations of black men, he called me, he said, you know, you're in a number of the organizations, so let's all get together. And that's what we did. We talked to our organizations, we had, and we were doing a lot of social action, but not enough. We would go to schools, mentoring, et cetera. So COAL, the name came from Coalition of African American Leaders, COAL. COAL is black. When you light coal, you have a fire. And too much pressure on coal, you form a diamond. That's why we named it COAL. Now I take credit for that, so that's one of my favorite things. And right now, we need this. We need this health fair. Because most of us, I'm talking about most of us as human beings, we don't take good care of our health. We don't drink enough water. I see some of you got the water, so that's good. We don't drink enough water. Our diet's not right. We don't go see the doctor. And the health fair, they brought up and I'm not just preaching to the choir. I'm preaching for myself. I got my COVID flu a couple of weeks ago. Had no problem other than, you know, sore on each side. I had mine on each side. Had a little headache the first day, and the soreness lasted for a few days, and that was it. So don't be afraid of getting your shots. Don't be afraid of having your blood pressure taken, and it might be high, it might be low. You want to find out now, because you might have a stroke if it's too high. And I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad to see you here, and it's going to be a lot of information exchanged. So are there any questions for me? Since 2005, the idea started, and it's over 10 years now. We meet on the first traditionally on the first Saturday of every month, but naturally with COVID, et cetera, a lot of it's Zoom. But when it's live, we were at a facility, but they were having reconstruction going on. So right now we're on Zoom. So I want you to, all of you, you gave us your email, and we'll be sending out information on when we go back live. When we go back live, we have a breakfast for a nominal price, delicious. We have, and everybody gets when everybody gets together, we have the judges come in. You know, a lot of time when you go to vote, you don't know who the judges are. Well, COAL provides a mechanism for you to know the judges. And then and little knowledge. There's last Board of Education, we had no black male on the board, none. So we've been working on that. We had the people who want to run for that. One of whom is Rhyme Fest, which is a rapper. He wants to contribute, so he's running for the board. We want you to get involved. If you know somebody that wants to run for the board, we want you to support them. We want you to support all of our facilities and all of our professionals. Any other questions?
Primarily based in Chicago, or?
Based in Chicago. Right. And the reason, well, men on the board. Naturally, men can't survive without women. and I mean, we admit it. That's why we formed COLE. And we need women's help. And we're very happy to have all of you ladies to help us. Any other questions? Oh, no, every walk of life. Every walk of life, lawyers, doctors, pharmacists, every walk of life. No predominance of any particular profession. Okay? Say it one more time.
Do you have any specific initiatives or topics that you are undertaking at this time?
At the time, we're trying to get a board on the CPS. That's what we're doing right now. When it comes time for the elections, we will go with the judges. And of course, right now, voting. We work with several other young men's organizations and young people's organizations to encourage them and support them. Anything else? Now, what fields are you in? What types of employments are some of you sitting here? What is your interest? And whatever your interest is, just think about it. You don't have to say it now. Whatever your interest is, please attend the COLE meetings, whether it's in Zoom or in person.
And also, not only are women welcome in COLE, one of our leaders here is Dr. Hill, who thought of generational health in the first place as our topic for this year's event. And she'll be our next speaker. She's a long-term community naturopath, and she has a plethora of knowledge and insight and passion for health and for community work. And with no further ado, I'm going to pass on this microphone to Dr. Hill, Dr. Shirley Hill.
Thank you so much. How's that?
Okay, you good?
I'm good? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Can you hear me? I'm not on?
Let's see. We might need to switch. Here, let's see.
Testing.
Okay, that's better.
Good. Okay. So should I put this down?
No, that's for the camera.
Okay.
So, although it's
Yes, sir. So, I've been called a nutritionist, a dietitian, several other things. I've never been called a naturopath, though. I teach the chemistry of food and its relationship to disease. So that's where the confusion comes in. Nobody knows what that means. I'm a natural food hygienist. So I am going to, in my few minutes, I am going to give you some basics that if you grasp these basics, You'll never have to be diseased again. So because this is not, it's not treatment, it is prevention. This is prevention, but it is just something that we're not taught. It's something that we're not taught, nor do we ever think about it, consider it as it has to pertain to our health. And so if you need to take notes, take them. I know that everyone in this room is a professional, and just about everyone in this room is a medical professional. But this is a little twist. This is just give you something else to think about. And as far as prevention is concerned. So, all right, so everybody knows this. We start with, we have proteins that build cells, then the cells, they come together, form the tissues, specialized tissues, 4 types of tissues that form the organs, and then those five major organs, the ones that keep us alive, then we get our 11 or 12 systems from. Now, our cells, let's go back here to our cells. They say that we have 30 to 37 trillion cells. Now, you all take that with a grain of salt, because then the scientists say we really don't know how many there are. So, but they're guessing at 30 to 37 trillion cells, and then we have our proteins. Who can tell me where protein comes from? I should have 10 hands up. Thank you, ma'am. From beans and meat. Anybody else? Do you agree? Yes, ma'am. Amino acids, all right. And so we say beans, we say meat, we say amino acids. Broccoli, well, no, don't let me. Pretend I didn't say that. All right, so then we have broccoli, we have amino acids, we have meat, and we have beans. Now, almost all of those are correct. The only one that is not is the meat. And that is because the meat that we talk about, the meat that we eat, does not come from humans. It comes from animals. And if it comes from an animal, it is for an animal. Our proteins come from, as has been stated, amino acids. So now who knows where amino acids come from? Plants. Both of you said plants. You are absolutely right. Amino acids only come from raw plants. And they make the proteins, these 20,000 proteins that have with them one gene. Each protein, each cell has one gene. And so then, I think I said something there wrong, but each protein has one gene, and so that gives us 20,000 genes. All right, so then that comes from amino acids, which only comes from raw food. Yes, ma'am? No, ma'am, that's not what I said. What I said was that chicken protein is for chickens. Cow protein is for cows, and so forth and so on. So animal protein is for the animal. And humans, we get our protein from amino acids. Chicken will give you some kind of protein, but the kind of protein it is for the chicken. It was not correct. It was not correct. protein, our protein that comes from amino acids, and amino acids is what the body uses to make human protein. It's what the body uses to make human proteins. And those amino acids, they come from raw plants. I want to specifically hone in on that raw, not steamed, not baked, not barbecued, none of the above things, because something else that only comes from that raw plant are the enzymes. The only ones we know about are the digestive enzymes, but we need in our diet 3,000 to 5,000 enzymes daily, and each cell of the body makes 1,200 enzymes. And there is a big difference between those two, because the enzymes that are made by the cells, they only give you life. They don't give you living. They only give you life. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that. How many of you all have ever sat with, seen someone that is in the process of dying? Yeah. Most of us have taken care of someone that was in the process of dying. What happens as they progress in that death? What happens? They stop eating. And then what happens? There you go. They stop living. And so now at the end, you only have someone that has just enough life in them to exist. Now, can you all see that? If you're looking at the person, you know that they're waiting for that death. They're just waiting for that moment. And so a lot of times our people, they have made the decision that I'm ready to die. You got 25 people. They got 25 people. They got the whole church praying for them to live. But they have made the choice, I'm tired. I don't want to exist like this, and I'm ready to go home. And so enzymes, that's why we need 3,000 to 5,000 a day. Because that's what gives us living. Now, we get life from that cell, those cells that make that 1,200 enzymes. But they only give us life. That's laying in bed life. That's can't walk up the stairs life. That's can no longer run around the corner life. That's no longer the ability to bend over and play with your grandchildren life. Yes, ma'am. You praising God. Oh.
Yes, that too. My mom is in hospice care as we speak. They're at my house, and they're keeping an eye on her. And you're right, trying to get her to eat, and she won't.
Yes.
I have to sneak some bananas or some raisins or something into her oatmeal.
Yeah.
But she also doesn't have the teeth to chew raw food. As much as I want to give her salads and raw vegetables, she can't chew them. So I have to stew them.
Smoothie. You don't have to stew them, because then you kill the enzymes. Enzymes are destroyed at 102 degrees. That's a fever. That's a fever. So if you cook them, and then when you put them in water and cook them, now you have no enzymes. You have dead enzymes floating in water. So then, but you can make a smoothie. You can take an entire rainbow salad, plop it in that blender, put your water or your plant milk in there, and make a smoothie. And then she could, even if it's just a little bit, even if you give her just a little bit every 2 or 3 hours, then that's life that you're putting in that body. And she may not have enough time to, because it takes time for the body to reverse and repair. And so we may have used that time up doing something else, and other things, what we saw on the internet, what my friends sent me in the mail, they said this worked for so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. And we're using up the time that we do have for the body to repair itself. And so, but you're right, put it in a blender, make her a smoothie, and let her drink it as she can. And so she may not have enough time to reverse, but it will make her transition easier. It'll remove the pain. It'll make her comfortable, and it'll give her some more life, some more living to go with her life. Does that sound good? Yes, I'm not supposed to be taking questions now. Let me finish this, and then you can ask. I'm sorry, I disobeyed, but I'm sorry. And so then the two things that you need, now this is why we decline. This is why they talk about aging. As you get older, you're aging. Getting older is not why we die. I'm 74. I expect to live at least another 30 to 50 years. That's my goal, like this. That's my goal, and I intend to be doing just what I'm doing right now. And so getting old is not, it is not a death sentence. You know, it's appointed, we're all appointed to die at one time. But we're not appointed to have cancer, we're not appointed to have heart disease, we're not appointed to have strokes, so forth and so on. That is an enzyme and amino acid problem, because the protein that the body builds itself upon only comes from the amino acids, but we don't eat the amino acids because they come in raw foods. And so because we don't eat this, when we get here 20, 30 years later, and they take a lab or take x-rays or whatever, now we find we have declined all of the stuff that we have been eating that's corrosive. Did y'all know food is corrosive? Most of the stuff that we're eating is corrosive to the tissue cells and organs of the body, and that's why we die. And we don't eat the amino acids. We don't eat the foods that contain the amino acids and the enzymes. And so because of that, we have no building blocks. We replace this with animal protein, which when we eat it with starch, it causes glycation in the body, which is where we get our breasts, the lumps in our breasts, which is where we get our tumors, which is where we get so forth and so on and so forth and so on. And so then all of this, because it can take 20 years before, remember we got 30 to 37 trillion cells. It can be 20 years before a disease shows up in a system in our body. And so we've got a long time to undo this up here, because it starts here. So why not start here and put in the body those amino acids and enzymes that only come from raw foods? That way we can live longer and live better. We know we're eventually going to die, but we can enjoy ourselves on the way and then lay down and go to sleep, right? Okay, I think I used up my minutes.
All right. Okay, so now we get to our keynote speaker. This is my brother right here, Brother Dr. Nkugaleku Garrett. He's a public health expert as the past president of the American Academy of Public Health Physicians. He's also a physician, a community health leader, and most importantly, Andrena's husband. All right, so we're going to pass. Can you turn your other microphone on? And we're going to all right, we're going to pass the microphone to Dr. Garrett. One more time for Dr. Garrett.
Thank you all. Thank you to the Health Committee's members, Dr. Shirley Hill, Elliot McKinley Forte's leadership, and COE's executive leadership team for having me speak on this crucial concept to action theme, restoring Black generational health. My real name is Brother Nkululeko, which means liberation or freedom. In the, wait on it, Xhosa language of the southern region of South Africa. It was a name given to me by the Xhosa brethren I attended college with as we began our reactionary Pan-Africanism efforts in the early 80s. As we all participate in this reactionary work of our liberation, today's theme, Restoring Generational Health, reminds us that we must also be proactive. When you Google information on today's topic, as I did, you will find nothing, which tells you that the COE's Health Committee, which came up with this concept, is forward-thinking and comes from a place of deep thought and knowledge. If you cannot see a concept, you cannot believe it, and therefore cannot achieve it or participate in it, at least consciously. And so I want to start, so we're on the same page, with some terms, review some terms and concepts to frame this thing of restoring generational health. So first, what is health? Everybody, or many of you have seen this definition from the World Health Organization, or WHO. It's a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Let me stop for a second. Dr. Green, where are you? She stepped out. Okay, let me do something. I need to, I'm gonna need some assistance here with her, her Mac. I'm using somebody else's Mac. Yeah. Bear with me a second, everybody. So when we look at that definition came by way of the United Nations in 1945. Does anybody see anything wrong with that definition? Does anybody? Okay. Anybody else? That's what I'm trying to do. I can't. I don't know how to. Yeah, that's what I need help with. How do we go back like this? Then how do I get my notes? I want to get my notes. So the notes are under.
You want
Yeah.
the presenter view?
Thank you.
Presenter view.
What if we do exit? Let's see.
Yeah, but then I'll see that.
And then, that's okay. Okay, but if we can
Is that
expand it.
okay?
No, but we can expand the screen, right? We can still put it on.
Can't see it.
See, we should be able to do it where they don't see it. Let's see.
Slide. There you go. There we go.
I'm just trying to see.
And that's it.
Okay, good. Oh, you're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good, okay. So the problem I see with this definition, right, as our starting point, is our history of abject health and medical abuse, right, in this country started hundreds of years prior to this definition. This came out of the ashes of what? Auschwitz. But it didn't come out of what? Our history that began several hundred years before this, right? So when we want to frame our definition of, what is health, right, we have to start with our history, right, which starts prior to this, right? Because it's also one based in what? Survival. That's why we eat the animal protein. Coming back, I'm going to reference you, Dr. Hill, right? Because that health is based in survival, right? Which was important. We had to eat what we had to eat, right? But now the theme is pushing us, right? It's pushing us to move beyond, right, that survival mode, okay? So health, as Dr. Felisa Forte went to say, when we look at health, we have to also look at, there's many dimensions of health, right? So when we look at wellness, and many people are familiar with this term, in terms of it being a continuous and active process, achieving an optimal state of health where an individual becomes aware or makes choices towards a more whole self lifestyle, right? So we're all familiar with that one, right? This is a review, or it may be new for some, right? Let's see here. Let's see. I'm trying to make, how can I get to the next slide? Okay, here it is. Yeah, this is what I want. Okay. So here's the typical 8 dimensions of wellness, or wellness with a wheel, right? This wheel is to provide an interactive engagement tool, right? Where you have social, occupational, environmental, intellectual, spiritual, emotional, physical, and financial domains to your to each aspect of health. These are all interrelated, interdependent. If one is not functioning well, it affects all the others. And that's what Sister over at TREAD was mentioning. If the brethren is coming out, if one of these aspects of the domains are not working, they're going to be in what? Trouble health-wise, right? So thank you for sharing that. They have to have all of this working, right? And it has to be a part of a person's daily routine, right? Daily habits, having all this, right? But what's the problem with this? Yeah, I got a problem with this too.
You leave out family, because social and family aren't the same. Emotional and family aren't the same. That makes, I'm saying, I don't think this works. Okay, I don't think it works. But.
Testing. Are you picking it up, Fred? No, he's picking it up. Yeah, he's picking it up. So this is interesting. A mother would pick this up. What's missing? She said family. What else is missing?
I said family is missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was the first thing that I saw. But spiritual is more than spiritual, because spiritual is just one direction. There's spiritual and then there's religion, because those are 2 separate entities to me. They're not the same.
Right. You can include, maybe they're under social, but we see there's some limitations to this wellness wheel for us, right? For black people, right? If we're talking about restoring generational health, we're going to have to include parts that's a part of our culture, right, in this wellness wheel, right? So if your family member is using the wellness wheel, right, we're going to make some suggestions. I think we're going to make some suggestions that we can include in our wellness wheel, right? Right. It's still a good model because it's strength-based, but it doesn't have everything in there in terms of what we're trying to get to, right? And I Googled this. This is 2024, and this theme that y'all came up with, I'm public health. I didn't think about restoring, maybe I thought about it, but not in that way, restoring what? Generational health. So here's again, and it talks specifically about what they mean by the different aspects of wellness. So let's go to what Dr. Felicia mentioned. She mentioned spirit, expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life. Environmental, good health through pleasant environments that support, well-being, intellectual, social, the financial piece, right? This all makes sense, right? I don't need to go through it, right?
It's also mentioned on its side, diet's not up here, distinctly.
Yeah, where is diet? Good. Diet is not up here. Nutrition. Gia said, what? Recognizing need for physical activity, sleep, and nutrition.
But nutrition and diet are different.
No, but it's up here though.
Yeah, but nutrition and diet, just like spiritual and religion, are two different things.
Right. This has to get, it has to, right. It has to give, we have to prioritize that. Right? Because that's the most essential part. What we eat, what we put in our mouths, right? That's the most important part. Dr. Hill mentioned something about a corrosive diet. What happened to your marker, all right? Corrosive diet, right? Right, so here, we eat a carbohydrate, protein, right? Lipid, right, fat. What do we do with it? We burn it, combust. You said it's corrosive. She's right. Using a different language, right? But it's what? Corrosive. How is it corrosive? It gets converted to CO2 plus water, right? You need that, plus what? Energy in the form of what? ATP, energy. So why do we eat? We eat for what? Energy, ATP. Why do we eat? Because food tastes good? That's why I eat. But I'm supposed to eat for what? Energy. Put a bag of cookies in front of me. Wife didn't believe it. She saw it. Big bag of cookies. It's gone in about 10 to 15 minutes. She couldn't believe it. She said, where did those cookies go? So now it can't be in the house. It can't be around me.
And nutrients.
And what?
Nutrients.
What about it?
No, you eat for energy and for nutrients.
Right. So we eat for the nutrients, right? But particularly for the what? The nutrients for the ATP, for the energy. The energy helps makes these what? These the DNA, the RNA, right? To create those other structures for the organelles, right? Y'all heard of the mitochondria things inside the cell. So you need this ATP to make these other molecules that allows the cell to live. Okay? Here's the other problem. This is what makes it corrupt. Every time you eat, right, you burn this food, you produce what we call free radicals. And these free radicals, you've heard of it before, believe it or not, are what? Peroxide, right? Or superoxide dismutase. Free radical oxygen, right? So we produce these free radicals, and these free radicals inside blood vessel in our body, right? What do? They're corrosive, right? They'll harm what? The tissues, the cells in the what? The tissues. So we have other substances that we use to neutralize it, and you can take it. You can get these nutrients by taking what? Vitamins and what? Nutrients, right? So your vitamins, right, can be your what? Antioxidants, right? Your phytonutrients can be your antioxidants, right? Your plants can be your what? Antioxidants to neutralize these what? Free radicals. So that's a natural process. But the more you eat the green stuff, the colorful stuff, right, the less you have of these what? Free radicals that damages your tissue. So you won't live to be 150 years old, like, and I'm glad you said that because I keep telling my wife I need her around because I'm gonna live for 150 years. Isn't that right? Didn't I say that? That's why she was laughing back there. Because I said, no, I'm gonna live a long time because we have what? The gray matter, the brain to what? Help us problem solve this, right? So we can do this. Let's go on. So while white people's wellness definition and lists are limited, black people's health and wellness are tied inextricably to our what? Black liberation. Black people's narrative is tied to our what? Story, not his story, that begins prior to our what? Even kidnapping and trauma, right? Continuing reconstruction of that trauma, current prison incarceration, health disparities based on, and this is AMA historical initiatives, right? The American AMA, the American Medical Association. So where the white doctors, right, they experimented on black women, right? Then past that, right, the 50s and 60s with HeLa cells, right? And not experimentation, but where's the ethics in medicine that we're fighting now, corporate medicine, right? And please, Onyx is important is because they're not tied to being hired by some corporation. So if you go to a corporate physician, right? Meaning hospitals, I don't care if they're not for profit, they gotta exist because they gotta what? Make money. So it's not based upon what? It's not based upon what? Giving or wellness, right? The highest ethical principles that medicine is supposed to be about, a calling, right? We came into medicine and it's a what? A calling. And we still operate that way as Dr. Green, as is a what? A calling. Dr. White came into medicine, right? Because it's a what? Calling. Not whether or not the patient could what? Pay you. That was irrelevant. You knew that because you had knowledge and skills that you're going to be able to provide a service and be compensated, but not greed, not that framework. So our wellness, right, our health and wellness has to include knowledge of this because this has been what? Traumatic and continue to be traumatic. Ask what? Serena Williams. Or when we get those calls from our relatives or friends, right, about what's going on with their care, right? I'm not going to belabor that, but I do want to talk about a few more things in terms of this black health and wellness that we saw that was limiting. Domains are moving towards restoring black generational health. This is what Felicia mentioned, Dr. Felicia Forte mentioned. Relational wellness matter. We are communal. We are what? Interpersonal, right? Sexual wellness. Black people have a history of what? Sexual what? Exploitation and assault as our bodies. Because our bodies were not our own. And intimacy is what? Key. Raising our children as what? Wellness warriors, health warriors, right? You have to start this process early, right? Right. So the churches are important. Why? Because they can start the what? Process what? Early. You got a health ministry. So you can start them thinking about this process what? Early, in a supportive environment, right? Particularly, so rather than, so here, we should look at raising our children. I want y'all to consider this also. Look at raising our children in terms of health and wellness warriors rather than for a better life than we had, as this leads to a what? A weaker person. Oh, I want my child to do better, have better. That's garbage, throw that out the window. You want to raise them to be a what? A warrior, a health and wellness warrior, right? Right? Everybody with me? Right? That's a different notion because that can help us what? Restore generational health and move us away from what? The survival mode. Right? Because that's what this theme is about. How do we move out of this survival mode? Well, we got to come up with different aspects of wellness that we prioritize, right? Right? That we value. And we value this. And others, by the way, will value it too, as we prioritize it. So the whole world then what changes? Since this theme is health, right? What about our biology? Is melanin a solution to generational health? That one molecule, right? Melanin, is that the solution? Yes? No, of course not. That becomes Eurocentric, reductionist. Reduce everything down to a molecule. is this mechanism is going to solve all our problems. No, absolutely not. Dr. Hill mentioned about the body systems, familiar with the nervous system, endocrine system, all these systems, right? That we're familiar with, right? And it's organized from a micro to macro level, starting at the subatomic level. She began here, but we're familiar, we know about this, because we had biology, right? The subatomic level to atoms, to molecules, right? To macromolecules like the DNA, right? Then cells, tissues, organ systems, right? I'm going to come back to this later in just a second. Let's look at the DNA. Right? Because we're saying things start at the inside the cell. She mentioned this, right? Let's go back to what she said. Inside the cells, right? And we got a lot of them. Not only, she mentioned, 37 trillion? Right? In the brain, you have billions of cells, but you also have billions of what? Connections, what we call synapses. So really, in terms of what we have in terms of the power of what's in the individual is what? Truly divine. So raising them to be health warriors, right, is really what? Connecting them to the what? Church? To the divine. We must connect them what? To their divinity, right? They must always look in terms of what? Their divinity. This is certainly divine, our DNA. So in the middle here where you see TA, the letters in the middle, the base pairs call our genetic code, right? That gets normally what? That transferred to one generation to the next, right? Outside that, you see in orange. When those structures are affected, the orange molecules are affected, right? Right? We call that outside the genes, above the genes, outside, right? And we use the word, this is normal, epigenetics. So we've probably heard that in the news, epigenetics. So that's when a molecule attaches, because we're barbecuing, that's what you mentioned, right? Something in the environment, let's see here. There we go. Something in the environment affects our DNA spiral, because we know the DNA is a spiral, right? And you see the methylation of that, what we call that DNA backbone up there, right? Can we point to it? Let me see, maybe with, I want everybody to see this. Can everybody see what I'm pointing to on the screen? No, it doesn't show. But right on that ladder at the top, do you see that? Those molecules sitting up there? That's not supposed to be there. We call that a methylation. So you barbecue your food, you might get it. Some toxin, right? You might get it. Stress, right? In utero, woman isn't present, right? It can occur at any time, this methylation or any other kind of what we call epigenetic process. And what happens is, this is out, while it's outside the coding process, it can get passed to the what? Next generation. Am I correct, OB-GYN specialist? Right? Right. So even before, right, as we're talking to our children, right, we're saying part of health and wellness is we're talking to them about not just about conception, but preconception, right? So the process, right, of mating has to occur what? Way before what? You start the process of what? Talking about conceptualize, it has to be preconception. So what? Their bodies are right. Because this is occurring in the what? Male and the what? Female. So you're passing on generational what? Chaos, damage DNA. So we have to talk about what? When we're talking about restoring generational health, we have to include what? Preconception wellness as a domain, right? They should too, others should too, but we can start and let the others follow, right? So this just reviews, epigenetics, epigenomic, concerns with the DNA's been expressed, and I'll show you a picture of that, and it refers to what we call phenotype, what appears, right? How it appears. You can think of this epigenetic change as the software, whereas that part in the middle I showed you is more like the hardware, So the middle stuff is the hardware, where if you affect the orange part, that's the what software. So hardware, you methylate this, that's what software, right? Epigenetic, the orange part. So you alter the environment component. So let's look at it in terms of equation, right? The equation, genes plus the environment equals an altered, if you alter the environment, right, you can alter the genetics expression, right? You damage the DNA, right? And so what can do that? Poor nutrition, chronic stress. We're going to talk about the allostatic load, such as exposure to gun violence or any violence at any stage, particularly children, with adverse what? Child events, toxins or medications, in utero, anti-black bias, also called anti-black racism, whether it's structural or personal. Others, right? There's others, right? So here's the impact of the allostatic load. It affects our physiology. High blood pressure we call hypertension. Metabolic metabolism is not regulated properly, right? Our immune system is not functioning properly, right? We have a psychological load. We have mood disorders. Our cognition can decline. Substance abuse and misuse. Sleep disorders. Emotional load, fear, worry, anxiety, decreased resilience, or emotional dysregulation, right? So here's an example of when we're stressed out, and I'm gonna give you another one, but I wanna start with this picture here, a simplistic example, right, of a stress response starting at the level in something in our brain called the hypothalamus. So it's gonna release, when it's stimulated, impulse, and that impulse can travel to, excuse me, Dr. Forte, to the liver, right? And it converts, it can cause the pushing out of more sugar in the blood, glucose in the blood, in the liver here, right? And she mentioned that all that glucose in the blood, she mentioned the word glycation, right? Right. So what that means is you're adding sugar to the hemoglobin in your red blood cell, right? And what that's going to eventually cause, right, is cause damage to the inner lining of your what? Your blood vessels, right?
It doesn't come off. Sugar that doesn't come off.
Oh, sugar that doesn't come off. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And he didn't mention, he's an expert too. His background is in functional medicine. So when you're talking about what you think about like biosimilar, bioidentical, if you've heard that stuff in the news. So when people come to me about bioidentical, biosimilar substances, I send them over to Dr. Forte here. So here, the catecholamines, right? All right, so that's another, what we call the catecholamines are called, they're good when they're normally released, right? Because it helps to maintain the pressure in your body. But in excess, it's a problem. So when you're under chronic stress, we talk about the allostatic load, and you're releasing a lot of what? Catecholamines, right? That's gonna what? Keep your what? Blood pressure up. That's why it's pointing to this blood vessel, right? Your digestive system is not working when you're stressed out. You got decreased digestion, so when you're stressed, you don't eat because your digestion is not working. Normally this is fine, right? But if you have this for a long period of time, it becomes a problem. So you end up with high blood pressure because of the release of excessive amounts of catecholamines. And the catecholamines they're showing is released from a gland on top of the kidney called the adrenal gland. Right? So that's a simplistic version, but let me add some complexity to it, just a little bit, okay? Because I'm coming back to you, church over there. I'm coming back to y'all. So here is the another aspect of how we can look at the stress response, okay, system. We can start a little bit higher than the hypothalamus, okay? We're gonna start at the level of the prefrontal, actually the amygdala, okay? The amygdala is a small P-shaped size structure in the middle of the brain. You see it over there, amygdala, to your right, okay? And what's its function? What is it gonna do? Are scary or dangerous, right, in the environment, right? Okay, right? It's going to send a signal to the what? Prefrontal cortex and say, hey, what's happening? What's going on here? And the prefrontal cortex is going to send a signal back because it regulates that response and say, everything's okay. This is how we're going to handle this emotional stress. Whether that stress is biological, internal, or external, right? The prefrontal cortex, our cerebral cortex, is going to decide how scary is this, right? That amygdala is also going to send a signal down to the hypothalamus based on what the prefrontal cortex tells the amygdala. Hey, this is not so scary. Release a little bit of hormone, what we call, from the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is going to send a signal to your pituitary gland, and your pituitary gland is going to send a signal to your adrenal gland, some called cortisol, and tell the adrenal gland, hey, it's going to send a signal to the adrenal gland to say, hey, it's time to release cortisol because it's fight or flight, and we got to what? Raise your blood pressure. You really don't, but you don't know any better, right? You're under chronic stress, right? Or if it's something frightening, your blood pressure is going to what? Go up, right? What else is going to happen? They just point to the blood vessel. What else is going to happen when you're under chronic stress? Right, increase the glucose, right? So let's go back to that other diagram. Right, right. So you want to what? Also what? Dump more glucose in the blood. So now your metabolism is going to be all off, right? And your digestion is going to what? Go down, okay? So Dr. Forte mentioned you in the what? Everybody heard of it before. It's the what? Fight or what? Fight or flight, right? Fight or flight. So another way of looking at it, let's look at it another way. Okay.
Which actually in the addiction world would be like taking cocaine.
Addiction medicine specialist. Did you hear that? It's like taking cocaine, right? Okay. One other thing I want to say about this diagram, think about it in terms of, we also think about in terms of coming back to restoring wellness. This is what restoring health, generational health. This is important. I want you to think about this in terms of children. Experiment was done with children, right? And they were measuring cortisol release based on activity in the amygdala, right? And they were looking at teenagers and children. I think what it was 5 to 10, right? And the teenagers 13 to 17. And they exposed them to some stress, something on television, something frightening. When the parent was sitting next to the child, right, there was less stress hormone cortisol released, okay? Less than for the teenager when the parent was there. Think of the parent as the social support. So if a parent is there to provide, the church is there to provide, Cole is there to provide. Y'all see where I'm going? If we have institutions there to provide, trade is there to provide the support, right? You're going to have less what? Stress, anxiety, right? In fact, since you mentioned anxiety, let's say this was actually an experiment done where they looked at the cortisol levels in children that were in orphanages, right? And these children, no parents, right? So no social buffering, right? What do you think happened to their cortisol levels? You say they went up, right? That's what I thought. They went down. But remember I said I want to connect back with Dr. Forte. He said anxiety. But these children had more what? anxiety problems, right? So if you expose them to this stress, right, they don't have the social support, you thinking they're becoming health warriors, wellness warriors. No, they got to have the what? Support, emotional support, right? They got to have that support. Otherwise, they're going to end up with what? Anxiety disorders. That's what they found. That's what they found. So say that again. This is important. And then you, Jika.
I said, and that's what we're doing with the kids in our Med Advocacy Program. For the social science, for social emotional and emotional learning, SEL.
Okay. So, and that's critically important. Critically important. So we know this. If you're not there, those cortisol, they're going to have anxiety problems. And at what level does this work? Y'all ready? Back to this, my genes. Let me see if my genes, let's see here. I don't have that diagram. Oh, here. Everything gets encoded at a DNA level. Our experiences are encoded. So those experiences, when I say encoded, right, the DNA replicates, but it also makes messenger RNA. Messenger RNA leaves the cell and makes protein. The proteins are what? Recorded, right? So those experiences are recorded at a what? Genetic level, right? So go ahead. And stored, right? And coming back to the generational health, what did you say?
give it back to your offspring.
And now you're taking that to the what? Next generation. So there's another part here I want to discuss because many people have to take medications. How do they work? So I want to mention some about that. Coming back to restoring generational health, right? There's some concepts here. I'm going to make it plain. Don't worry, right? Pharmacokinetics, what the body is doing to the drugs, what the body does to the drug is simply how is that drug administered? Is it by mouth, right? Or is it, intramuscular? How is it delivered? It gets absorbed, gets distributed to different parts of the body. You either eliminate, you're going to metabolize it, convert it to something else, or eliminate it, right? The pharmacodynamics is what does the body do to the drug, and that is what we call its mechanism of action, right? So it's going to attach to some receptor on the cell, right? On the cell or inside the cell, and it's going to create a what? An action, right? A response, right? So that drug what? Works. And there's also a concept called pharmacogenetics, and that's simply looking at the genetic basis for how the medication may work for you differently from what might work from me in terms of the drug response, right? Now, these are important because when the physician is explaining this to you, right, explaining this to a patient, right, given the historical legacy of the AMA, right, just unethical things they did, right. We're talking about Henrietta Lacks, the surgical experiment on women. Hold on, you had a question.
You answered it.
What was it? Okay, yeah. My ADHD. Yeah. My apologies, yeah. So given that, we're not what? Trusting what? The process, right? Right? And what does that do? That creates what? Additional what? Anxiety. So let's talk about another aspect of return. We got to talk about, if we're going to talk about restoring generational health, we got to talk about a little bit about the nervous system, right? Because I want to do a demonstration at some point in terms of this notion of trance, right? I told you I was coming back to you, church. So trance. So what is trance? Right? So what is trance? That's just an altered state of consciousness, right? Right? An altered state. You can achieve it by what? Being in church, right? Music, dance, exercising, meditation, chanting, Pharmaceutical, very good. Yes, medications, right? Can all take you into what? Trance. Okay? I want to give a demonstration, right, on myself, and then we have time and activity where you can do it on yourselves, right? Right? And of the hypnosis. And so let me just go into it in terms of how this works. And I want to talk about it because remember we talked about genes, right? Our activity, our behavior, right? Our language get recorded at a genetic level, right? Right? And that gets translated to what? Proteins, right? To cellular what? Reactions, right? To particular behaviors, right? Right? So we want to use church language, right? Meditation, not so much medications unless we have to, right? We got to leave that evil marijuana alone, right? I'm gonna come back to that. Why? Unless you have to, right? Just like if you're in survival mode, you got to take the animal protein. You got to do it if you're in survival mode, right? Right. If you're coming out of prison and you don't know about a community garden, right? You got to what? Do the animal protein, but that's survival, right? So we got to connect and say, how can we get them, right? Continue to move them from survival to what? Looking at generational what? Health, right? So how can trance help with this generational health? Why is that important? Because you want to change this process here, right? Change this process here. And you can do that with meditation. You can do that with hypnosis. You can do that with what? Scripture. Come on, church. It's call and response. All right. I'm going to take the church card back now. I know the apostle over there. Yeah. The apostle over there, when patients came in, right? If the patient came in, right? This reinforced my learning, how I knew I was going to what? Relate to patients. If the patient didn't need anything in medication, no, he didn't give him anything. He what? What did he do with him? He prayed with him. He prayed with him. Right? So what was he doing? Taking them into what? Trance. He was taking them into trance. Here, we got left, right brain, right? Left brain, linear, right? Logic. Right brain is what? Logic also, but in a different way. It's not linear, but it's what? Logical, the brain function. So we call it hemispheric functioning of the brain, right? A lot of other details, not necessary at this point. When you're stressed out, you activate what we call the hypothalamic. You remember that thalamus in the brain, right? Pituitary axis that goes to the cortisol to release the cortisol, right? So if we in a stressed out mode, what we want to do, we're going to trance, or we stressed out, we want to what? Have the parasympathetic activity predominate, right? This is a slow process. This is sympathetic is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is what? Go ahead. Relax, right? Repose, okay? So when you go into trance, right, you're using what? Parasympathetic what? You're using your what? Parasympathetic nervous system. And you're going to, particularly when you go into trance, when we say, particularly hypnosis, you're going to use your what? Right brain, looking at things holistically, and the energy in your left brain is what? Decreased. How do we know this? With the EEG, the galvanic skin response. And the brother that used to laugh at me when we were students, before we were students, he used to laugh at me. Now he's a beast with this stuff, with all this gadgetry. Dr. Elliot Forte, he's a meditation beast now. He does this stuff with all the, what do you call it? Neurofeedback, biofeedback instruments, right? Right? But am I making this up, Dr. Forte? Yeah, he used to not laugh with me, but laugh what? But I knew I had to what? Do it in front of them so they would what? Model what? The behavior. The behavior that this activity of doing trance hypnosis was what? Okay to do it. And it's something that should be what? Taught from what? Day one. So we should see it at what? Like we see CPR. Next month, I'm going to say, okay, they got meditation classes over at the church, right? At TRED, right? Hypnosis classes, right? This should be started from what? They want to produce what? Health and wellness what? Warriors. This person revolutionized hypnosis in two ways. One, he showed how to create a process for someone to take themselves into trance in less than 3 minutes, because historically it would take 15 to 20 minutes before a person was induced to trance, and he showed that all people are hypnotizable. And so even with that, master hypnotist, this is important to the support system. Remember that amygdala, right? Right? Every time he would go over to the VA to see those doctors, right, his blood pressure would shoot up. This is William Weathers III. And by the way, his father was a dentist, his father was a physician, and his son was a physician. And so he said one time, because his blood pressure was 200 over 100. And so his son said, "Dad, take the medicine, take the medicine." Because it was so high, they gave him something called what? Clonidine, right? But what he did a process, I'm going to show y'all, right, to go into trance, and the divine told him what, if you will, to go ahead and take it, right? His pressure was up. So he took the medicine. But prior to going there, his support system was his wife. And she would say, "Billy, do your breathing, do your breathing." One of the things when you're going into trance, whether it's a meditation or hypnosis, we tell you to what? Breathe. So the breathing is an essential point. So he had to breathe. Why was he breathing? To what? Increase the what? Parasympathetic response, the relaxation response. That took a minute to get what? At equilibrium. All right, church? Why is that important, church? Because when we're talking about prayers, effective prayers, right? Right? The effective prayer is when you what? It may take a minute. That's why we what? Run around in the church speaking in tongues, right? It may take a minute to cut off that stress response, right? I didn't know why my mother was doing it, but it was effective, right? Right? She would go into what? Trance, and what? Parasympathetic system is activated, right? And then a solution will come. So if there was a housing issue where what? Because there was 8 of us and we need housing, she would go into trance, right? In prayer, and the what? The answer would what? Come. So you have to what? I want you to see the connection between what we're doing in the church, right? What you're doing here in terms of trade, the social emotional, right? We have to what? See this process and teach this to our children. So this leads me to the next part, right? Of restoring generational health. And you're doing it, y'all just don't know it, but you're doing it every day. We're doing this. We just have to continue to go get better and better at this. So it started in 2005, COLE, Coalition of African American Leaders, restoring generational health. How about a good health place, right? Can COLE have a what? Good health place. What is a good health place? It was established by CHAMPS, or the Chicago Area Health and Medical Careers Programs in the mid-'80s by Dr. Reginald Jones. Dr. Jones was radicalized by the terrorist and killing of his childhood friend, Emmett Till. He went to school with him. And so he was radicalized to say, hey, we got to do something about this, what, balance. So his expertise was, by the way, biology. But he was also the community health director for the city of Chicago. Dr. Bradley, a longtime director, snatched him from over there and said, you need to come over to join CHAMPS and put together this what? Good health place. A community-based effort, right, directed by a jazz musician, Khaled Ali, not a what? Remember what Dr. White said, Coles. Anybody and everybody what? Can join. So this person is leading the good health place is a what? Jazz musician, right? Another way to what? Take somebody and what? Give them a skill, right? Knowledge to what? To heal, right? It was located in what? Neighborhoods, churches, or as a what? Storefront, right? So what you're doing is a what? A good health place. That's a what? Good health what? Good health place. Overall goal to produce health and wellness warriors across the lifespan, not just what? Being a what? A community health warrior. You must be a what? A warrior, a health and wellness what? Warrior, because we're talking about restoring generational what? Health. What are the aims? provide a trusted community-based health resource run by local community members or students, provide age-appropriate health training, learning about the body functions, prevention, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, STIs, right? That's on the rise, substance abuse and misuse, vaccines, instructions on how to take your what? Own blood pressure, blood sugars, now it's the CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, cholesterol. Free certifications with what? CPR, CNA, phlebotomy, MA, we're adding the surgical assistant, EMT in the spring. This may be more in the fall, but EMT. When did we just, so this is through partnerships with Kimberly Bowden Miller. She's a critical care doctor, palliative medicine doctor, and she's located in Orland Park, but we want to establish this also across the street from Jackson Park and in a couple of the school districts. So and here's the critical part, the meditation and the what? Hypnosis, right? So we have to what? Teach that, right? How many, see it's now it's normal for Dr. Elliot Forte, myself. How many times do you think I go into trance a day? How many times do you think we should do it? Go into trance. 5 times a day. 5 times? Anybody else? And really, you really never in real time. But you want to go in a deeper, right, where you're in what we call alpha brain waves, where brainwave activity, we got 4 levels of brainwave activity. Beta, alpha. Normally think of alpha as first. I'm an alpha, A5. But anyway, in this case, the alpha is second. You see, to help you remember it. Beta, alpha. Beta brainwave activities is 13 to 32 cycles per second. Alpha, 7 to 12. So you're going into this trance state, hypnotic state, naturally, at least twice a day, right? But we want to exploit that. You're going at least what? Twice a day, right before you go to sleep, right before you wake up, you're in a sleepy, drowsy mood. Can hear everything around you, but don't want to what? Move, but can move, right? So you're feeling great, right? Twice a day, right before you wake up, right before you what? Go to sleep. You're going into what? Alpha brain waves. With training, right? So I'll sit. Wife don't think I'm crazy anymore, right? I'll sit and I'll what? I'll sit for what? An hour, just what? Going into what? Trance, right? That should be a natural phenomenon. Or I'll do something quick. Like I'm sitting there, I'm doing, as other people are speaking, I'm going into what? Trance. I'm doing my what? Breathing exercises. We're doing it what? All the time. So you're able to what? Recite scripture, right? Anything to what? Along with the breathing, to keep you in what? Trance. Why? Why do you want to go into trance? Remember the other part? The right hemisphere, holistic part, right? That energy is remaining what? High, and the energy in the left hemisphere is what? Low. So you're more suggestible. Your what? Your suggestions will take. Your what? Prayers will what? Will be what? More effective. Right? So this is about what? Maintaining your connection what? With the divine. So that's why we teach this. You got to teach them from day one. So when they're in a chaotic situation, right? They'll see the what? The order in the disorder. Because they what? Functioning from a higher what? Level. They're in tune to themselves and to the divine. The healing is instantaneous. Your healing is what? That process starts instantaneously. When I'm talking about the things at the DNA level, right? That process is what? Instantaneous.
So which wavelength is that?
Okay, so when you go to sleep and you wake up, you're in alpha, 7 to 12, right? So when I need to do things, let's say the doc want to do surgery on me, right? Brothers had the doctor do surgery on him, and his son was there, this is back in the day, right? And they thinking they're using anesthesia, right? But what did he do? He went into another level of brainwave activity, theta and delta. Delta is there, right? And there are slower brain waves, like 4 to 6 and 1 to 3. So in those states, that's where you want to that's where you can evoke the greater level of what? Anesthesia. Okay, so that's how, you've seen on television, and this is, you've seen on television before, just Google it, you don't have to believe me, where the dentist is pulling somebody's teeth out without any anesthesia because they have them in that level of what? Brainwave activity, right? And you can do that because they're not using the energy in the what? Left hemisphere, right? We're gonna do a demonstration. Okay. All right, so to the framework of the, and I'm just about done, one more slide, of the Good Health Place, brother by the name of Hunter Adams came along, right? And what he did, he's a Pan-Africanist cultural neuroscience researcher. And what he added to the Good Health Place and to CHAMPS really was a cultural framework that referenced ourselves and not our oppressors. So he would sit there and talk with Dr. Jones and say, hey, this is what we need, this is why we need it. And of course, Dr. Jones, being a scientist, was skeptical, but as he talked on, he saw the importance. MOD was an organizing framework of the pyramid builders, right? The nonviolent. And it was based on, this is important, the most significant aspect of the relationship between mother, that should be an R in there, and child. What's the most significant aspect of the relationship between mother and child? What's the most significant aspect? Mamas. Nurturing and bonding. Touch. And so it was symbolized, if you see the pyramid here, by a rectangular piece of concrete, right? And it was symbolized that because that was a symbol of endurance. It changed over time. Sometimes it was a feather headdress, right? But Ma'at is, quote, dead. So it was reimagined, and we'll talk about the reimagination. But it's also still alive in the form of another framework, right? Same thing of what you may have heard before is Ubuntu. You may have heard the phrase, we are because I am because we are. That's what Ubuntu, which is really what, Ma'at, okay? What else about this, besides referencing ourselves? Why reference ourselves? Because we want to move beyond. Remember, the thing is about restoring generational health. We want to move beyond what? Survival mode, having a survival mindset, right? We want to have a thriving, we want to move in terms of looking in terms of what? Thriving, right? So we got to have a different reference point, right? And we want to have a what? Common language. We want to what? Be able to communicate, right? That this is our what? Reference point. That it's not going to be what? As she's saying, the animal protein. Why can't it be the what? Plant-based nutrition. Why, when they come out of incarceration, why can't what? Their first stop, besides getting an ID, being what? To go in and get what? A plant-based source to get what? Plant-based what? Food, right? Start them off right, or restart them, or form them right in the right way. That's what COAL represents, a coalition of African-American what? Leaders that what? Self-organized. They found an island of order with all this what? Chaos. And they said, we need a what? Black what? Somebody running for the what? School board, right? Somebody thought of that. The revolution starts with a what? An idea. So Boris called you, and y'all what? Started it. Self-organized, right? The 4 foundations of my Reimagine is virtue-based. Virtue, not values, virtue, right? So these are unchanging. That life is important, right? That you don't what? Kill, right? You push back chaos. Life is paramount, is important. Love, right? Dr. Rimber mentioned what? Love. Scripture said, that which you love, you what? Empower, right? Creativity. We're always changing. They ain't gonna be able to control our stuff because we're always what? Creating. Every time the director came up to the medical school or wherever he's going in the country, like I said, he always had a what? a new program. Dr. Bradley, y'all got to meet him, the director of Champs, right? He was always coming up with new. I said, how you come up with, how you come? He said, what do you have? When we go on these school trips with kids and whatnot, just have his Bible. He'd just be reading his Bible. And it what? Because he was going into what? Trance. He was taking himself in what? Trance, and coming up with what? A solution that needed, generally when he was going across the country here in Dr. Jones, with the what? A solution. They had to create something. So they had to connect to the what? To the divine. I said, Doc, you just can't. Man, he said, man, I was just reading this. I had the Bible with me. I was just, I'm just reading it. And I'm just what? Listening to the what? To the people, right? To problem solve. So we continue to what? Create. And it's about awareness. Awareness of how what? Body functions, right? Right? So we have to bring the what? Awareness to it, right? And the values, that's what, let them do what they're doing. But these are our virtues. These are our values, right? Sharing, happiness. And my was not just about happiness, but it was about the search for happiness itself. Perfection, never can achieve it, right? And then look at yourself as what? God, because you never can what? Make that neuron, that brain cell. We don't know how to make a brain cell, right? So you're not what? You're not God, right? Reciprocity. That's not quid pro quo, something for something, like that knucklehead in New York, quid pro quo, or the guy that called himself a black Nazi, right? Right? His values is because he's in their what?
He's in their atmosphere.
Their service, their atmosphere, exactly. Brother, you know, right. So when others came to Champs, we weren't worrying about them being what? Traitors, because we knew they were functioning from what? Our framework.
Yes.
And if they did, they went somewhere else. When they got into somebody else's environment, there was a different what? Matter. Then you saw the what? Changing.
Yes.
But when they function, if they come to Cole, then they're going to what? Submit to what? The Coalition of African American what? Leaders. Right? So when the mayor's invited to Cole, right? He's going to submit to what? The proposals of what? Cole. See, I'm just putting that out there. Yeah. Right? So my reimagining informs us that we cannot linearize our liberation to restore generational health. It is now a movement created by what? Cole. Generational what? Health. Restoring our what? Generational what? Health. So with that, I want to do a quick demonstration, and if I have time, less than 3 minutes. So this demonstration of self-hypnosis was created, the form of self-hypnosis I'm going to do was created by William Weathers III from the Decarian Institute of Applied Hypnosis. Applied meaning that we believe that it works, as opposed to experimental hypnosis. So I was at the experimental field when I was just learning this through Champs. I couldn't believe it, so I was running over to the medical library and I saw books and books on hypnosis. I said, wow. And to show that it worked, right, when we went through the training process, he hooked us up to the GSR, so you had to pass, right? Just like with the CPR, you had to pass. So when we're teaching people what meditation and hypnosis, right, you want to have some process where you know that they, and they know that they what? Can do it, right? You just don't want to give it to them, right? Like I've seen some process my wife was telling me about, and I saw where it's called Calm, and you have this bell and you ring the bell, the student's reading the bell, ding, and I guess you're at peace or something. That sounds too much like a channel, or like a dog or something training. No, we need to provide this as a tool, right? Provide the resource as a what? A tool that they can use, right? Right? But along with these virtues and values, do you hear me, church? Right? So they have to have what? These values. So we don't teach everybody this, right? I go into trance and connect to the divine, but they're not. It's in my best interest in divine order what? To teach somebody what? This process that we utilize from the Decarian Institute of Applied Hypnosis, right? So you must connect to the what? Them to the divine and see if it's in their best interest to share it, right? Does it make sense? Because it's infinite in terms of what you can do when you what? creative. So you got a question, and you need the solution. How are you going to get the solution? Anybody? So for now, henceforth, you got a question, and you need the answer. How are you going to get the solution? What's the best way to do it?
Pray.
Pray. Why? Why? I got to know. I'm a scientist. I got to know it from a biological standpoint.
The
Why?
Holy Spirit, it comes to you through prayer. When you pray,
But how?
a feeling, an emotion, out of nowhere, it's in your brain, it's in your heart, it's where you come from. It's a comfort level that you can't explain. But when it comes, it comes.
Anybody want to add to it? Yeah, go ahead. This one doesn't. Yeah. I agree. Yes.
Scientists have just found, not just found, but I don't know how long they've known it. They're just relaying it. I saw a university professor, he did what we're doing, a symposium on it. It's the God gene. And they found that deep in the recesses of our brain, that we have a gene, and that gene responds to when we hear God things, that gene lights up like a Christmas tree. And so, so we hear that God is in us. The God gene, it is activated by God things. So the Holy Spirit, that is connected or in that gene, it relays the information to us. I don't go into a trance, but I definitely go in and get answers that I need for whatever questions that I have.
How you know you're not going into trance?
How do I know?
See, because I would say that you are, based on what he's saying. You said a feeling, a mood. Remember I said when you go into trance, you what? It's a what? Feeling. You feel what? Good.
Yeah.
And you don't want to what? Leave it. Like, ooh, I want to stay here forever. This feeling ain't good. Right? Right?
He said it, we would be a replica of him. He didn't say that we would be God, but we would be like God.
Made a little bit lower than what?
Yes.
Made a little bit lower than what? How are we made? A little bit lower than angels. A little bit lower than what? Angels. Go ahead, ma'am.
It comes from the measure of faith that's given to all of us. We can't explain it, but it's there. If you want to call it a God gene, whatever it is, we look in through the Holy Spirit and the anointing that comes from God. It's that dunamis power that He puts through us. But I don't think we'll ever explain it. We're not supposed to. I go that.
Well, no. We can explain. No. We can explain, right, that these are our what? Virtues and values. We can explain why we learn that, at least I can, why it was important for me to learn about I'm made a little bit lower than what? Angels. That explained, and I understood that. Now we can explain that. And we're going to what? Explain it to what? Because you asked the question. The balance, right? How we're going to be the what? Balance interrupters. We're going to what? See ourselves as a what? Good health place with these values, and we don't move from it. Right. We don't move from this.
Right.
Life, love, we don't move.
Right.
Right? We move in terms of what? Love. We're not moving, we're not changing. I don't care how many people want to say, oh, Trump, black Trump. We're not moving in terms of no hate. We move in terms of what? Love. That doesn't change, and we can explain that.
And God is love.
And God is love. So are we going to change?
No love.
No, we're not changing, and we can explain it.
We can't. We can try.
Was I clear today? Was I clear? Was I clear in terms of the question that you asked, in terms of reaching those what? Kids. See, the other thing, we meet once a month over at Real Man Charities right down the street here, right? With brethren, right? And while I'm supposed to provide some, health information, I'm busy there taking notes from them. Last discussion was on what? Prostate cancer, prevention and whatnot. And what it came down to, my part was what? Just connecting them with what? Physicians, black physicians, right? Because I'm there, what? To, being a support system, right? We're talking about the nutrients, nutraceuticals, right? How, that's important. So I just want to mention superoxide dismutase. Everybody should take a antioxidant like a CoQ10 or superoxide dismutase. But that stuff is expensive. So just eat this stuff. Eat broccoli. That contains the protein that you need, right? You're going to have all those phytonutrients, right? And eat it what? Raw. I'm going to give you a demonstration of the hypnosis that I do, okay? So this is how I do my self-hypnosis exercise, and I'll do it for like 3 minutes or however long. I'll give myself a suggestion along with it, right? Because in that state, I'm going to be more what? Suggestible. Right, relaxed, but more what? Suggestible, right? That's why I want you to use your prayers. I want you to go into trance, right? Right? To connect with what? And to ask then even the what? The Holy Spirit. We haven't got scripture, right? For even what? More power. So your answers are going to, your question, the answers to your questions are going to be what? Answered. Okay?
Dr. Garrett, before you get started,
yes.
Is there any breathing that they should do in preparation for this?
So the breathing that I do is I make like I'm breathing through a straw. Inhale. I'll tell myself, hold it, count 1, 2, exhale, inhale. But you can do any kind of breathing they have you to do with your example. Just breathe, inhale, hold it, count 1, 2, exhale. And then my last breath, I'm telling myself, when I'm going off into trance, I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I'm off into what? Trance. Now, while I'm in trance, what does that mean? My senses of awareness are what? Heightened. So I can hear more, right? I can hear better. So it's not like somebody can do something to me, right? Or to you, because your senses of awareness are actually what? Higher than if you're in a sympathetic mode doing fight or what? Fight. Most people think, right? You're fighting, right? Right? You ready? No, you want to, all stiff. You want to be what? Relaxed, right? Allow the what? Parasympathetic to what? Predominate. Okay, so I'm going to give this demonstration. My body is relaxing. I'm going to close my eyes even before I tell it to you. My body is relaxing. And I'm telling myself the who, what, when, where, and why. So what am I telling my body? My body is what? Relaxing. Completely relaxing. So what am I telling myself? How much? Completely means what? Is an adverb. It means what? How much? My body is relaxing, completely relaxing, and I'm going where? Deep, deep asleep. I'm going to do, this is a suggestion I'm going to give myself, and I'm going to do it for what? 3 minutes. While I'm asleep, I want my subconscious to use its powers of time distortion and covert imagery to let me see myself, feel myself, and hear myself. Practice my martial arts punching exercises 5 million times in all possible formats. And each time that I do 225, each time I do this suggestion, this response will be enhanced, and I want to continue the suggestion even while I'm awake. When I awaken, my mind and body will be in and divine order. Inhale. Hold it, count 1, 2, exhale. Inhale. Hold it, count 1, 2, exhale. Inhale. Hold it, count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this presentation. I hope it has been empowering. And this feels so good. And I hope that we can collaborate in terms of forming a good health place. Okay? Any questions?
All right, thank you again, Dr. Garrett.